Hey guys, what's going on? Steven back again, and I'm back with another 40K video from Warhammer. So we got more unsolved mysteries. Some of my favorite type of 40K videos. From the files of the unsolved mysteries of the 40K universe. So the title of this video is, There is Something Big Underneath the Universe. Tyranids? I don't know. You know, it makes me wonder. I wonder if any of this stuff will actually play out. You know, will any of this stuff actually get answered and stuff like that? Or is it just something just meant to be mysteries? You know, because I've been watching a couple of videos, and some of them have been saying, like, right now, at least with, like, 10th edition, there's just kind of, like, a lore problem. Like, it just feels like not much has really happened, you know, because I'm trying to think what actually happened in 10th edition so far. What we had, I don't know, Abaddon and Vashtor team up. They started to attack some places. Vashtor attacked the Rock. He got his ass handed to him. He fled. The Lion came back. He fought Angron, which was actually pretty badass. He started to reunite the Fallen. Now Fulgrim's back. Yeah, that's all I can pretty much think of for like 10th edition. Oh, I think wasn't there some Necron and Gilliman stuff like early 10th edition, I think? Or was that 9th? Maybe that was 10th. See, I don't remember. But that's just some of the stuff I remember. You know, still waiting on like a Lion Gilliman reunion and stuff like that. Yeah, it just kind of seems like there's really not much that's been happening in 10th edition. You know, it's like every time something new comes out, like the old one gets, you know, pushed aside. Like first it was like Vashtor, the Archaphane. I think that's what he was called. And I mean, he sounds pretty cool. His model looks badass and stuff like that. He did some pretty interesting stuff. And then the Lion came out and he got pushed aside. And then we got the Lion for a little bit. Now Fulgrim's back. And it's like the Lion got pushed aside. You know, it's kind of like the meme, like, new, shiny, I don't want to play with you anymore. You know, so, I don't know. That's what, I've been watching some videos just saying, like, yeah, there's a bit of a lore lull, I guess you can say. But, I don't know. Maybe that's why some of these things just aren't coming true. Well, like I said, maybe they're just meant to be mysteries, you know, just unsolved things, but who knows? All right, so anyways, let's get on to the video and, yeah, learn about whatever is underneath the universe. Sound interesting? Here we go.
The grimdark future of Warhammer 40K is no stranger to creepy, unsolved mysteries.
Exactly.
In this series,
I love these type of videos.
Secrecy to learn the truth behind each and every one of them.
I wonder where he gets all this information
video,
from.
We're going to be talking about a terrifying and obscure alternate dimension that is the physical universe's equivalent of the deep warp and was discovered by the Necrons. This so-called basement of the universe is believed to be the birthplace of the star gods and eldritch entities beyond human comprehension. We're going to be talking about a mysterious fleet within the Indomitus Crusade that nobody seems to know anything about. Not its purpose, who it was sent to fight, or why all records of its existence have been meticulously purged. The only evidence it leaves behind is a string of mass disappearances and the corpses of any who ask too many questions. We're also going to be talking about the language of creation, words
That's
of
kind of
power,
interesting.
and one of 40K's most mysterious villains' quest to learn the true name of the God Emperor. In turn, gaining control over the Imperium, mankind, and all of reality. We're going to be talking about all that and a whole lot more in this one, but before we dive headfirst into the Grimdark, a quick shout out to this video's sponsor, It's been proven time and again that the
Interesting.
best way
A
to learn something
mysterious
is to
fleet.
actually have fun while you're doing it. After all, if you're not enjoying the process, how can you expect to stick with it long enough to reach your goals? Well, that's where today's sponsor, Boot.dev, comes in, as they've made learning back-end web development in the Python and Go programming languages just as fun as gaming. Boot.dev is an online self-paced system that teaches you how to code without forcing you to write a bunch of code that you may not understand right off the bat. They turn the entire thing into a role-playing game where you complete lessons, earn XP, and build real projects. It's got all the features you'd expect from an RPG, like leveling up, an achievement system, leaderboards, and even bi-monthly boss fights, where the community rallies together and gains bonus XP for each lesson completed during the event. As you progress, you'll become even more powerful. You'll unlock pages in your spellbook, which is an unlockable cheat sheet of links and notes that you can review at any time. And if you ever get stuck, their AI-powered bear wizard is there to help. He uses the Socratic teaching method, meaning he asks you questions that deepen your understanding and guides you instead of just giving you the answers. And here's the thing, there's no risk to trying Boot.dev for yourself. They never want a student feeling like they spent money on something that wasn't actually helping them.
Sounds kind of interesting.
They offer both a free demo of every course and its interactive features, as well as a 30-day no questions asked refund policy. So what are you waiting for? Click on the link in the description down below and use my code WesHammer to get 25% off your entire first year if you choose the annual plan. Big thanks to Boot.dev for sponsoring this video. The basement of the universe. If you've been following my creepy mystery series for a while, then you may remember us talking about the deep warp theory, wherein the warp is believed to be much
very
like
confusing.
the ocean. The deeper you go, the darker, stranger, and more dangerous it becomes. Proponents of the deep warp theory believe that within the area we would refer to as the deep warp dwell entities beyond even the gods' own understanding. Lovecraftian formless horrors that feed upon the corpses of dead deities that end up floating down into their depths, in a similar manner to how the carcasses of whales support entire ecosystems in the depths of our own oceans. Well, what if the concept of a deep warp is not as exclusive to the immaterium as one would logically assume? If reality and unreality are inherently linked together, and the warp is a reflection of the physical universe, then one could also assume that space and time, so too, have a deeper, unseen realm. The basement of the universe, as some have taken to calling it. And what if I was to tell you that not only does such a terrifying place actually exist, unlike the deep warp, which at the moment is just a theory, we have first-hand accounts from individuals who have actually gone to the basement and returned alive. Credit to the user Observance, who gathered the relevant excerpts and shared his findings in the 40K lore subreddit. Now, in the second Twice Dead King novel, Reign, the main character Ultax, who is a Necron Pharaoh of a smaller dynasty, is on the run from an Imperial crusading fleet.
Of course, it would be the Necrons.
I found this book to be amazing, and if you're a
They're
Necron
probably the only
fan,
ones who can
you should
manage and
definitely
handle
check
it.
out. So this is in no way an insult to the book, but pretty much the entire second book is one big long chase scene. At one point, Ultax and the other Necrons aboard his ship attempt to give the Imperial vessels the slip, utilizing a piece of Necron technology called the Ghost Wind. Now, if you play the tabletop game, you may be familiar with the Necron relic, the Veil of Darkness, that is a selectable option and allows your units to teleport around. You may
Necrons was the next army I was going to play.
Version known as the Ghostwalk Mantle used by Oberon. The Ghost Wind is using the same technology, but scaled up so it can affect an entire Necron fleet. This is what the Cryptech Mintep had to say about it.
You will know, of course, that we have long been able to confound lesser species by operating in layers of reality below the observable by use of the dimensional entrances. Well, my fellows and I established, after much labor, access
I wonder if there's any videos just talking about like the pure,
and we found the bottom. A place
like
concepts
strength or power of the Necrons. Like, what is their capabilities? What can they do? You know, like, obviously they can pass through the warp without any issues and stuff, but what else can, like, what else are there, like, limits and stuff like that?
Mintap reacted as if Ultax had deposited some weak dead vermin creature in front of him.
Categorically no. That loathsome magic remains blessedly out of reach of our kind, and one of the few true boons our nature offers us. No, the Ghost Wind drops a vessel or vessels to a place where reality itself is an impossible concept.
After the device is utilized and the Necrons slip away, they find themselves in a realm of perverse nothingness, one that they subsequently refer to by the same name as the device they used to get here, the Ghost Wind. Now, that's creepy and spooky enough that just like how the physical universe has a creepy, terrible addict with the warp, so too does it have an equally terrible and alien basement. But the even creepier part was that it wasn't just empty nothingness. It emanated an impossible feeling of intelligence, so palpable it caused even a group of Necrons to feel fear, something that they have not been capable of ever since biotransference. Oltex could see it, in the way the groups of shipless nobles clustered fractionally closer together across the bridge.
Felt fear from whatever
or if not
is
fear,
down there.
at least a discomfort which tessellated
that
very
is
closely
interesting.
with the shape of fear. It was subtle, of course. It might not even have been tangible to one who had not been adjacent to fear so often as Oltex had. He suspected the nobles themselves even did not realize what they felt, but he could see it. It was there, elemental and atavistic, a dreadful, immense sense of hunger to the dark, which he had only encountered once before. It had been on the day of biotransference, as the Catan themselves had drifted vast and tattered through the ash plumes of the immolated Necron tier. The evocatory medium had taken Oltex's only memory of that day, but the echo of that hunger, that malevolence, could never be expunged. Later on in the story, when a fight breaks out and many of the Necrons end up getting killed, Oltex realizes that their core intelligence that normally escapes from their slain necrodermis bodies and transfers to their resurrection vaults to be placed in a new shell wasn't escaping as it normally did. Instead, it was immediately being siphoned away by the hungering intelligence within the Ghost Wind. These nobles, who had existed for millions of years, had vanished into twisting plasma, never to be seen again. Use of the Ghost Wind is something that is not widely done by the Necrons. Many of the cryptex that first discovered it and worked on the device used to access it were either killed or went insane. One of them even went so far as wiping his entire memory clean in order to get away from it. Now, when it comes to actual takeaways from this book about the Ghost Wind, we do learn that this is how the Flayed Ones are able to tunnel through reality and teleport to distant battlefields across the stars. It's also heavily implied that this is the birthplace and substance of the Catan. And it got me thinking, what if the Catan are not actually gods at all? At least not in terms of being the material universe's equivalent to the Chaos gods. What if they are simply a manifestation of something far larger and far darker, both figuratively and literally, that dwells within the Ghost Wind? It would at least explain why they cannot actually be destroyed. They're plugged too thoroughly into reality, and that's why the Necrons had to shatter them instead. What if a Catan is nothing more than a piece of or projection of
kind of like how greater demons are kind of like the manifestation of their gods.
Projection of a larger consciousness within the warp. The OP of this Reddit post even postulates the terrifying idea that there could potentially be an infinite number of whole Catan just lurking below the surface within the universe's basement. Perhaps the entire thing may even just be one giant one. Now, I'll be honest, I'm still working through the pieces of this one myself, and the book leaves us with a lot of unanswered questions.
Of course.
Hopefully we'll get some kind of follow-up on the Ghost Wind in the future, but until that happens, what it actually is will remain one of 40K's creepiest mysteries.
Well, let's see, what was that book called? Because when did that book, I wonder when that book came out. Shoot, I've lost where it was. Oh, there we go.
Is a Necron Pharaon of a smaller dot findings in the 40K lore subreddit.
Let's see, I'm just curious.
In the second Twice Dead King novel, Reign, the main character Oltex, who is a Necron Pharaon of a smaller dynasty, is on the run from an Imperial crusading fleet. Now, personally speaking, I found this book to be amazing, and if you're a Necron fan, you should definitely check it out. So this is Ghost Wind in the future, but until that happens, what it actually is will remain one of 40K's creepiest mysteries. The redacted mission of Fleet Septim.
Okay, so let's see. The Twice Dead King Ruin Book 1. Okay, so it is called... Okay, so Book 1. When did it come out? That came out... Does it have a date or anything like that? Because, you know, it's kind of curious. Like, you know... well, yeah, there'll be another book, but, you know, the first book came out, like, 10 years ago. It's like, well, maybe one day, you know, there'll be a second book, you know. It doesn't say October 9th, 2021. Oh, wait. Twice Dead King novel series? Oh, okay. So, which one was it? Ruin or Reign? Ruin, right? Is that what it was? Ruin? Reign. Oh, okay. So there was a second book. Released January 15th, 2022. Okay. Okay, so there is still a chance, that there could be another book then, because it's still relatively new, It was always curious if, like I said, if it was one of those books that came out, 2010, something like that. So, all right, so maybe there'll be more answers eventually when there is a third book. So, yeah.
In the wake of Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade, we witnessed the destruction of
the
fortress
famous
world of Cadia
13th
and the
Black
opening
Crusade.
of the Great Rift, a wound in reality that stretched across the galaxy and tore the Imperium in half. The side opposite of Terra is known as Imperium Nihilus, and every world over there is separated from the light of the Astronomicon and thus forced to fend for themselves. They have no hope of reinforcements from any of the systems around them, and they don't even really know if Terra still stands. The entire region was plunged into chaos, and for all intents and purposes,
being that
they're
cut off.
experiencing basically the same thing of all those who lived during the Age of Strife, right after the end of the Dark Age of technology. To fix this, the recently resurrected Primarch and now Imperial Regent Rabute Gilliman created and launched the Indomitus Crusade to take back Imperium Nihilus, mend the broken Imperium, and reinforce and resupply all of the worlds affected on both sides of the rift. The Crusade was broken up into 10 absolutely massive fleets, each larger than entire past Crusades. Each of these fleets was then divided into dozens of independent battle groups that would end up splitting off for specific campaign spheres. Those battle groups would then be divided even further into task forces, each with specific campaign objectives. Now, as you can imagine, such an overwhelming concentration of the Imperium's military might required an even more exhaustive data harvest in order to record, document, and catalog all of the logistical information pertaining to each of the fleets. A task that was and still is being conducted by the Officio Logisticarum. However, amidst the library of information that they've gathered, there seems to be a single suspicious omission. There was practically nothing recorded about the 7th Fleet, known as Fleet Septimus. Not its mission, not its muster point, its makeup, anyone assigned to any of its vessels, nor its overall purpose. This caused rumors and speculations to begin circulating amongst the crews of the vessels in the other fleets, each tale more fearful and superstitious than the last. It was said that if Fleet Command had any answers or information, they weren't sharing. They remained frustratingly silent. But hey, at the end of the day, many of the higher-ups within the other fleets viewed these as just rumors after all. Tall tales that voidsmen make up and pass around. It was ancient human behavior that unconsciously gave men a sense of control over things they did not understand. So long as they kept in line, the rumors were ultimately viewed as harmless. That was
right, they're just
until
rumors.
The disappearances
rumors
started.
Just of rumors.
Seemingly every arm of the Imperial military had a host of personnel vanish into thin air, from high-ranking individuals to seemingly unimportant grunts. Some even had entire regiments or supply shipments of weapons, ammo, and vehicles disappear without a trace. The only clue to what happened to them was a strange sigil featuring the Imperial Aquila and a skull bearing the Roman numeral for 7 ingrained in its forehead. This, of course, was the sigil of Fleet Septimus, left behind in the victim's last known locations. A first-hand account from the lexicographer 3rd class Yonam Jail stated that the seal seemed to be stamped with a strange sort of ink, black as the void and cold to the touch. It made you frightened just to look at it, not only because of the authority it conveyed, but some sort of menace that you didn't dare deny. The only other clue to Fleet Septimus's purpose that we've been given so far is an in-universe unfinished letter that was penned by Lord Commissar Lawrence Chinkin of Fleet Secundus and addressed to General Gensist. And the letter itself was recovered from the scene of the Lord Commissar's murder and was stained in his blood. The contents of the letter seemed to indicate that the Lord Commissar had been growing increasingly frustrated with the secrecy, scapegoating, and seeming cover-ups of everything involving the 7th. When the disappearances first started happening, he had been instructed by the general to just let it go.
What's the 7th?
Eventually, this became too much.
What's
and
the
when
7th
Lord
Legion?
Commissar pressed the matter again, the general
there's some
ceased all
numerology.
communication. Frustrated, the Lord Commissar had begun a purge of elements he deemed harmful towards Fleet Secundus's organizational hierarchy. He states that it was bad enough when one of his captains vanished and all that was left behind was the seal of the 7th and a piece of parchment pinned to the captain's door stating that she had been reassigned. The 2nd had had one of its most decorated heroes stolen from them with no explanation, no justification, and no indication of whose authority this was done under. Further, although this was the first disappearance, it certainly would not be the last. Over time, it would happen again and again. The only evidence left behind was more of those sigils. It was well documented that Fleet Secundus had one of the hardest roads ahead of any of the Crusades' fleet.
Okay, so
yet
where was it
here,
heading?
With no explanation, they were being systematically stripped of their resources. What trial could Septimus be facing that was so much more important? The bigger issue at hand for him was the massive impact these disappearances were having on the morale of his troops. If Secundus's mission had seemed hopeless at first, now the men had direct evidence of the absolute best of them quietly being ferried away to a less hopeless mission. Mercy and understanding rarely shared the same trench, so the Lord Commissar had been forced to enact a series of executions to quell the growing dissension.
Oh boy.
Deaths he ultimately blamed Septimus for.
And now I am to stand by yet again. 2 days before we at last depart, am I to turn my cheek upon discovering that our own 1st and 2nd companies have been rerouted in transit and will no longer be rejoining the ranks? Am I not to question their whereabouts, their mission, the authority that has ratified the removal of this
Apparently
regiment's
not.
most veteran warriors? No, General. Fleet Septimus can keep their onyx servo skulls and the mysterious seal of secrecy, for I will have no part of it. This is Fleet Secundus, not Septimus, and if they believe they can intimidate Lord Commissar Chenkin into silence, then they are grieving.
The letter went unfinished, the Commissar seemingly having been killed mid-sentence. What mission could Fleet Septimus be on that warranted such secrecy, let alone the execution of a Lord Commissar, and potentially many more high-ranking individuals that had pushed too far? Where could they have gone? Who were they sent against? And when will they return? There's still a lot we don't know, but considering just how big and important the Indomitus Crusade is to the overall narrative of 40K right now, I think it's only a matter of time before Septimus ends up showing up in a Black Library novel, and we get some much-needed insight into their purpose.
That would be kind of cool.
Until then, however, the 7th will remain one of 40K's creepiest mysteries.
Because who else could redact that?
Annuncia and the power of the Emperor's true name.
I mean, the Inquisitors could go after it, I guess.
The Emperor of Mankind
get whatever information they needed.
By his title
Gilliman.
Or some variation of it. The God Emperor, the Master of Mankind, the All-Father, the Omnissiah, or, to filthy heretics, the Corpse Emperor or the Anathema. Interestingly, his true name has never actually been used. Now, it's true that we know his birth name was Neoth, a fact dating back to some of 40K's oldest lore that was again confirmed by Erda in the Siege of Terra novels. But that isn't his true name. If anything, it's nothing but a single piece of it, in the way that a single grain of sand is part of a vast desert. The truth is that no one living or dead has ever heard the Emperor's true name spoken aloud. Or if an individual was to do such a great and terrible thing, it could give them the power to unravel reality itself and plunge all of existence into chaos.
So is it like one of those, like...
turns out, there is somebody who would...
So is it like one of those things with, like, the Emperor's name, like... you know, like when it comes to, like, allegedly, like, banishing demons, like, once you learn the demon's name, then you kind of have power over it. Until you don't know its name, you know, it doesn't do it, you know, you have no effect over it. But once you learn its name, then you have power over it. So I wonder if it's kind of like that with the Emperor. Once you learn the Emperor's name, I don't know.
Was attempting to do just that. A mysterious entity known only as the King in Yellow. An entity that serves as the primary antagonist and background mastermind in the Dan Abnett Inquisitor series. But if his name isn't Neoth or Space King or Jimmy Space, then what is it? And why would knowing it give anyone power? what is the King in Yellow actually planning to do if he ever manages to figure it out? Further, if all it takes is knowing somebody's name to gain power over them, then why isn't this something that's happening all of the time across the galaxy, as most people don't really keep their names hidden? Well, in order to get to the bottom of this particular mystery, we need to understand what a true name actually is and why it is important. To do this, we have to clear up a few misconceptions.
There we go, Vashtor.
Now, the lore tells us that
He
names
looks badass.
have power, and if you can learn a creature's true name, you can in turn gain power over it. For the most part, the vast majority of the lore available to us is only ever really dealing with this in the context of demons and other warp entities. Though, as we're going to get into, it may not be so limited after all. On the contrary, it may also apply to anything that has a soul. When it comes to demons, if you ever hear their names spoken in the source material, this isn't their true name. They instead go by a bunch of different titles or dozens, if not hundreds, of false names in order to keep their true names safe. Whether it's in concern to demons, humans, or aliens, most people wrongfully assume that a true name is nothing more than a creature's birth name, or at least the very first name they ever went by. However, it's a lot more complicated than that. It's not like a Nurgle demon that calls itself Bleedus Rotfart is actually secretly named James, and he just really hopes nobody ever finds that out.
Never know.
True name isn't even really a name at all, at least not in the way we understand it. In metaphysical terms, a true name is a creature's entire existence. It is quite literally everything about them, their entire essence in its most distilled form. You can think of it like this. It's every name, nickname, and title that entity has ever gone by. It's every moment of their life, every victory and every defeat. It is every thought or idea it has ever had, every belief it has ever held, every fear, hope, and aspiration it has ever felt. It is their home address, their phone number, their social security number. It's the entire footprint their existence has left upon space and time.
Right.
I could keep going listing examples for an hour, but I think you get the picture. Needless to say, even for just your run-of-the-mill lesser demon, such a name would take dozens of books to write out. For greater demons, probably libraries the size of a planet. And a chaos god? I don't even think there's enough ink and parchment in the entire galaxy to write that out.
That would be interesting.
For would-be sorcerers trying to utilize a true name, they don't have to read out the equivalent of the entire Song of Ice and Fire series every single time they try to summon a demon or give one a command. What ends up happening is that entire library worth of information about the entity is converted into the language of the warp, and thus condensed down into words of power. It's not a perfect analogy, and I don't really know anything about programming, but it's kind of like a programming language, wherein a bunch of ones and zeros, i.e. truths about the entity, come together to form actual letters. In the source material, we almost never get to hear a true name spoken aloud in its entirety. And most of the time, the authors choose to depict such an act with garbled sounds and alien consonants that human vocal cords were never meant to conjure. Other times, these unwords, as they're often called, are not written out at all. The author instead describes the sound of them as so unconscionable, the human mind can't process it. The individual can only feel its awesome and terrible effects. Here's a quick excerpt from the Ahriman series that I think gets the idea across. Even hearing a part of such a name could break a mortal's sanity. Even the name unspoken corroded the substance which held it. Written in a book, the paper would burn and turn to living, screaming flesh. Cast in metal, the metal would rust, melt, take form, and scuttle into shadows. Etched into a goblet, the glass would shatter, and the fragments become clouds of sharp edges thirsting for blood.
So you can't even have, like, servitors and stuff do it then.
To use it to summon, bind, or dismiss a demon was to do something both terrible and extraordinary. For obvious reasons, attempting to learn a demon's true name, i.e. attempting to discern words of power from the library of their existence, is a maddening and dangerous process.
Would drive someone crazy.
Even a single syllable of such a name is a feat in and of itself, as it contains a fragment of the true name's power. Most often, speaking such violations also does a considerable amount of damage to the wielder. Speaking these unwords is often described as vomiting them into existence. Physical effects can include lacerations and burns to the throat, boils and blisters within the mouth, and even the speaker's teeth being blown out by the force behind each syllable.
Jesus.
And that's just the common side effects experienced by trained practitioners of the dark arts. If an untrained person tried to say a particularly powerful unword,
yeah, they'd be
at
screwed.
best, their head would simply burst apart. At worst, they would become ground zero for the metaphysical equivalent of a nuke going off. There's actually a sorcerer in the Ahriman series that has within his mind the true names of tons of different demons, some of them being particularly ancient and powerful greater demons. What he's had to do is basically break his mind apart into a bunch of different walled off sections that he doesn't have access to, each one containing just a piece of a single name. That way, he doesn't accidentally use one or think about one unless he's ready to do so. Okay, so now that we know all about true names, how does this apply to the Emperor, and what is the King in Yellow actually trying to accomplish? As I mentioned before, even though the Emperor is called a god by humanity, and we often talk about him in terms of spiritual power, he technically has more in common with a regular person than a demon or a chaos god. Check out my video all about souls, gods, and the afterlife if you want a deep dive into that. But I'll give you the simple takeaways here. A demon or a chaos god only exist in the immaterium, whereas living creatures like humans and Xenos exist in both the physical and the immaterium. Demons
so they live in
only
both
have
worlds.
a soul, but humans have a soul and a body, each connected to each other by a spiritual tether known as an anchor. And coincidentally, this is how it is for the Emperor. He has a living body,
and a soul,
and an anchor, just like any regular guardsman does. The major difference between them being just the size and power of the Emperor's soul. Now, as true names are said to be spoken in the language of the warp, i.e. the language of demons, traditionally speaking, they don't seem to apply to human beings nor the Emperor, as we share a common metaphysical structure with him. But what if this isn't actually the case? What if it's not that true names don't apply to entities of the physical universe? It's just that they're written and spoken in a completely different language. A language that is far older and more powerful than the language of demons. A language known as Enuncia. Now, full disclosure, when it comes to Enuncia in The King in Yellow, it's a pretty big topic that I've been wanting to cover for a long time, but that video is going to require a lot of research, so it'll come later. For right now, we're just going to stick to the basics. Enuncia is the first language, the oldest one in existence. Although it is believed to have been used by the old ones in their cultivating of the galaxy, it is unknown if they were its original creators. There's a non-zero chance it's even older than them. Although we call it a language, its primary use was not for communication. Enuncia was used as both a tool and a weapon, words of power that could mold and shape the fabric of reality. It is believed that all language is derived from Enuncia, the raw power and potency of its words being diluted over the eons by each subsequent deviation. In fact, in a somewhat on-the-nose reference, the in-universe equivalent of the Tower of Babel was created by a group known as the Cognitae, an organization obsessed with the study and collection of Enuncia. The tower was said to be covered in this stuff, and it would take a combined effort by the Emperor and Oliensis Pius, who at the time was acting as his war master, to stop the Cognitae and bring about the tower's destruction. The Emperor saw the value in Enuncia, as unlike with words derived from the true names of demons, which require the user to be a psyker, Enuncia could be used by anyone. Now, knowing what we know about the Big E, we can understand why he would want to keep a hold of such a powerful tool. But the idea horrified Oliensis and led to their falling out. The nature of their disagreement is unknown, but the end result was that the tower was in fact destroyed and the two went their separate ways. We don't have any concrete examples of the Emperor using Enuncia after this, or whether any parts of the tower were recovered. But considering that Gavriel Loken's group found a book titled A Primer of Enuncia in the Imperial Palace's largest library during the Siege of Terra, it's evident the Emperor felt the language of the Old Ones was too valuable to throw away in its entirety. Outside of Earth, small bits of Enuncia have been unearthed
something like that you don't want to just throw away.
On ancient tablets. To those who know what they're looking at, an unearthed piece of the original language is worth a fortune comparative only to the value of entire worlds. Throughout the Inquisitor series, and a few times during the Horus Heresy, we've seen the original language utilized by people as a weapon to stun, disorient, or even kill their enemies. And just like with other words of power, they can be just as damaging to the wielder as well. It's a strange but relatively common phenomena for an individual to immediately forget a word of Enuncia after using it, all traces of it being erased from their mind as soon as they vomit it into existence. Across space and time, many different cultures, cults, and secret cabals have attempted to unlock the secrets of Enuncia, and many more have tried to cover it up. It's also evident that Enuncia plays a pretty big role in the King in Yellow's plans. When it comes to the Emperor's true name,
now,
he
who
seeks
is the
to
King in
speak it
Yellow?
in Enuncia, rather than the language of the warp, which many 40K theorists believe is simply one more deviant language split off from Enuncia, and thus, although still incredibly powerful in its own right, is comparatively inferior. Because of this, Enuncia would allow for not only the control of demons, but all creatures within the physical universe as well, even those that do not have souls. It's very possible it could affect Necrons or even the Catan as well. In his quest for the Emperor's name, the king has made a lot of powerful enemies. By the time of the Beckwin trilogy, individuals from every Chaos Legion, 3 separate craft worlds, the Inquisition, and many more have all been attempting to stop him. Now, there's a lot of unknowns when it comes to the King in Yellow and what we're going to see in the final Inquisitor book, which, if I'm just being honest with you, I'm way more excited for that than I was for the End and the Death. Hopefully now that the Siege of Terra is over, Dan Abnett can get back to work and finish the series. But considering how much time passed between the first Beckwin book and the second one, we might still be waiting a while. Unfortunately, until that book comes out, the truth behind Enuncia, the Emperor's true name, and what the King in Yellow is attempting to do will remain another one of 40K's many unsolved mysteries.
Wow. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, so I gotta learn more about that King in Yellow. Who is he? Or what is he? I mean, it sounds pretty interesting. But yeah, these were pretty interesting mysteries and stuff like that. You know, the first language, what's the Emperor's name, the King in Yellow, and then if you try to say demons' names and stuff like that will just drive you insane and kill you. But like I did say, if you learn a demon's name, you basically have like power over it. And then maybe that's what the plan is with trying to get a hold of the Emperor. But the Emperor is more more like a man, or is a man than an actual god. So yeah, that'll be interesting. Although, like you said, it's been a long time. The first book was 2012 and the second one was 2021, so yeah, could be waiting a while. The Mysterious Fleet, that one was pretty interesting and stuff like that. I wonder if we'll ever get a resolution on that, or some more answers and stuff on what happened to that fleet, what it's doing, and what happened to it and stuff like that. Or maybe not. Like I said, there's been kind of like a lull in the lore and stuff like that. It kind of seems like not much is really happening right now. So I don't know. I don't know if any of these will ever get answered. And then, of course, the Basement of the Universe. That's pretty interesting. That maybe the Catan are just manifestations of what is actually down there, and they're kind of like greater demons of chaos, they're just basically manifestations of their gods. Maybe that's what the Catan actually are and stuff. But the fact that, whatever's down there made the Necrons feel fear, that's kind of interesting. That's kind of freaky that even Necrons felt fear from whatever's down there. But yeah, I still want to see a video just talking about, because the Necrons always interested me. That was going to be my next army I was originally going to play. Right before Games Workshop closed down the Games Workshop store that I worked at. I was reading the codex and everything like that, learning the rules, and starting to make up an army list. And it's like, all right, I'm going to take this. I'll take this character here. I'll take this Necron Lord. Yada yada yada. I'll have 2 units of troops, and I'll take this and that. And I was piecing out good, 2,000, 3,000 point army. Just getting it together and you know, just basically getting everything ready and stuff like that on what I was going to purchase. And, well, kind of didn't happen. Store closed down shortly after that, and I never got to start my Necron army. You know, that was the next one. I tried most of the others. You know, I had obviously nice size Space Marine army. I did Chaos Space Marines. I know, big change. I went from regular Space Marines to Chaos. All I did is throw spikes on them. No. What else? I tried Tyranids. I had a little Tyranid army, because, yeah, that was getting pretty expensive. What else did I do? Space Marines, Chaos, Nids. Can't remember what else I had. I think I had some Eldar. Yeah, I think I had Eldar. I think that was like pretty much it. Yeah, it was mostly Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines were my really big armies that I had and stuff like that. The other ones were, you know, well, a lot smaller. I mean, I could have fielded almost 4,000 points of Chaos and regular Space Marines, and like Nids and stuff like that. I could do like maybe 1,500. Eldar was maybe like 1,000 points. Yeah, and that was pretty much it. Same thing with fantasy. You know, I had a huge dwarf army. I love my dwarves; they were great. I had chaos. I could field. I could field quite a bit of chaos, actually. I mean, granted, if I upgraded the shit out of them, I could have fielded a big... I mean, it wasn't going to be a big army, but it was going to be like a strong, you know, a strong army. Like, I would have had, you know, like a Chaos Lord, you know, I don't know, 2 units of 20 Chaos Warriors fully kitted out. I could have had, like, 2 10 units of Chaos Knights and, like, a couple other things. And, yeah, I could have, like, decked the shit out. I'm like, oh, this one's got, like, the Mark of Khorne. This one's got the Mark of Nurgle. These are, you know, Chaos Knights with the Mark of whatever and stuff like that. And then upgrade the shit out of them. And, yeah, I would have added up very, very quickly. I wouldn't have had many models, but... yeah, they would have hit like trucks and held their own, you know, just like my dwarves. Granted, they were very strong, but I had lots of dwarf models, so yeah, good times back then. I miss my dwarves. I remember I had a giant block of 30. What were they called? Iron Breakers? Yeah, I think it was Iron Breakers. Yeah, I had a unit of... I made 1 unit of 30 of them. Nobody wanted to go near them. Nobody. I stuck my little dwarf lord and stuff right inside of them. Leadership 10. The armor was ridiculous. They were like Space Marines. They had like a 3-up armor save. It's like, yeah, whatever you throw at them, that unit is just locked in combat for the rest of the game. They weren't going anywhere, and neither were my dwarves. They would just sit there and be like, oh, we lost a couple. Chug. Let's go. Oh, man, good times back then. But yep, Necrons, that was my next army, and all I got now is just my one little model I got. I think it was from the Indominus box I bought offline. I just wanted that model. But anyways, there we go. There is the video. More 40K mysteries. I'm all for it. You know, like I said, maybe one day we'll get some answers to some of these and stuff like that. Who knows? But, you know, with the way some of these books are and how long it takes, like, you know, we said in the last one, it took 9 years for, what was it, the other Beckwin book and stuff like that. So, who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But anyways, there we go. There's the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit that thumbs up on. That'd be awesome. And of course, leave me all your thoughts and comments. What do you guys think about the video? What do you think about the mysteries and stuff? Do you think any of these will ever get answered? And yeah, if you know of any other 40K mysteries that hasn't been covered in any videos, let me know. And of course, if there is any other videos you guys want me to check out, let me know. You know, like I said, I always look forward to Wes Hammer's videos and his, you know, mysteries and unsolved and creepy and horror, you know, videos and stuff like that, because those are always, like, really good. But if you know of any other ones, let me know. I'm down to check those out. But other than that, yeah, like I said, if you guys liked the video, hit the thumbs up button. That'd be awesome. Remember, feel free to subscribe to my channel. And other than that, just stick around. More videos are on the way. And I will see you guys next time.